Hey there, and welcome back to the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast. I'm Ryan Burr, joined as always by the founder of the Junior Golf Hub, Roger Knick. And Roger, heading into September, boy, where did the summer go? Certainly an eventful summer. The FedEx Cup has been awarded a whole lot of money to Viktor Hovland. The staggered system, we never really even got into it. We were so busy last week. Where are you on starting Scotty Scheffler at 10 under par?
Well, I don't know how I feel about it, but I know it seems to the last few years work. But I know there's some tweaks to it. I mean, it's got to be some tweaks. It seems as though everyone says it's going to be a flawed thing anyway, because one person could get hot and win everything and never, and so I know they're trying to be equitable about that, since there is so much money riding on it. But I don't know what I heard the other day on the Golf Channel, they were talking about doing a 4-person, match play playoff, doing 36 holes and cutting it down to 4 or whatever it was. I kind of like that idea, but I get TV probably doesn't like that idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I'm not sure if the guys would like the match play element too, because then, as we all know, anything can happen in match play. So. Yeah. But Viktor Hovland, I'm not sure, Roger, I've ever seen someone hit it that pure.
Wow, it was solid. I mean, it was so good. And I loved what he was talking about, which was he was just letting it go. He he just wanted to swing as hard as he could and just let it go. He trusted his short game, which obviously he worked on his short game a lot and went from whatever it was, 150th in short game to now in the top 50. Which obviously is paying off for him. So pretty impressive. I really love his candor, his jovial attitude of just so much, I think, joy in the game. I hope a lot of kids and parents watch that. This kid is, and I say young man, I say kid, he's a young man, but really enjoying playing the game, right? I mean, You can see it, you can hear it. I mean, so much so getting his Chipotle after the round and talking about, hey, he doesn't need much, even though he's made whatever it was, $18 million this year. So pretty impressive.
What do you make of that golf swing? It hits a little bit of a pull cut. It's different. He gives up some yardage, but boy, it's consistent. I mean, you don't see that. I'm actually a little surprised that there aren't more copycats of that out there, but he's kind of on an island by himself with that golf swing.
No doubt about it. I mean, again, it's not about what it looks like. It's about how you get it done. And I think he gets it done. It's very simple. He trusts it, which is great. I agree with you. I'm not sure why people aren't copycatting that swing. I know there's a lot of people that went off on a tangent with Matt Wolff and tried to copy, that move, which I don't know if that was, that was one I would want to copy. But Hovland is impressive of just playing the game.
Yeah. And the big three for Europe, certainly McIlroy, Rahm, and Hovland. I don't think there's any doubt you could make the argument that their best three are the best three.
Yeah, no doubt. It's going to be interesting for the Ryder Cup. I'm excited about it. I know they're having meetings today, kind of going through a bunch of stuff on who's going to be on the watch list, if you will. Who's going to be the lead player for the U.S. and for the European team. So really exciting stuff coming up.
Yeah, it will be a very exciting Ryder Cup. We'll be able to get into that all fall and a little bit more about match play and why over the years Europeans have been better in quote-unquote team competition. But that we'll save for another day. Do want to get a touch from you on high school golf is starting everywhere, and we are constantly quite a few messages even on the message board. Do you guys recommend high school golf or just continue to play tournament golf? My high school is not very good. Is there anything to be gained by going and playing high school golf? What's your answer to that, Roger?
I'd say, if you have the opportunity to play high school golf and tournament golf, do it. I know there are some restrictions out there in certain states and certain conferences that don't allow it. But if you can do it, I think, you're still looking to play on a college team. You're on a team, be a team, a good teammate. I think it's good experience for that. Take pride in playing for your school. I think all of those things are good things to play and continue to play in high school golf. But if you don't, I mean, if your school doesn't allow it, then you have a choice to make. You know, what does your future look like? And unlike most sports in high school, the team sports, golf is an individual sport when it comes to recruiting and going to college. So you need to make sure that you're putting yourself in the best situations possible to be recognized and build your resume, build your game, those kind of things. So I think if you can, you can. If you can't, you know, you got to make a choice, and most likely it's going to be a hard choice, probably not to play for the high school team.
Yeah, I would add this. Own personal story to this would be there are a couple states that have some silly rules, like you're only allowed to play 3 tournaments during the season. And certainly as you progress into the northern part of the United States, the season's getting shorter and shorter anyways. You know, a lot of high schools actually play in the spring up north, but there are still over half the schools in America play in the fall. Just from my own experience with an elite junior golfer and it always comes back to, we always talk about fun. And that's such a difficult word to use because you're trying to achieve something, you know, it's very difficult, and this game takes so much practice, and often everyone says, have fun. And it's like, well, you go putt for 9 hours in 100 green. Tell me how much fun you're having.
Yeah.
But, you know, high school golf, being with kids that you go to school with every day, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that might be shooting, you know, mid 80s, 90s, and you're the stud on the team. The reality is you are going to have a lot of laughs, a lot of fun with those guys. Most high schools only play once or twice a week. If your team's not great trying to win a state title, now if you're trying to win a state title, that's a completely different thing. That is actual real pressure, much like the Ryder Cup, because now you're playing for your teammates. But if the question was, my school's not that good, there's a good chance they're not practicing, you know, 5 days a week, 4 days a week, 3 days a week anyway. So you can kind of do your own thing, but to go out there with those matches with the kids that you go to school with, that you eat lunch with, that you kind of hang out with, it's never a bad idea to play golf and to have fun, especially at the elite level. And sometimes high school golf can do just that. Welcome in a very special guest to the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast. Welcome in Dr. Bob Winters, Roger, and I know we both got a lot of questions for Dr. Bob. Dr. Bob, thanks for joining us. We'll start with this. This podcast has quickly, episode 22, become the gold standard of junior golf podcasts across the United States. There was a giant hole, if you will, of kind of a roadmap of how to negotiate junior golf at the high end if your ambition was to play college golf. And certainly we've struck a chord with our viewers and listeners and thought it would be a great idea to hear from someone in your expertise a little bit on the mental game. So thanks for joining us, Dr. Bob.
Thanks, Dr. Bob.
Ryan. Yeah, Ryan, Roger, it's great to be on the podcast with you. And so let's get to it. Let's talk about, you know, junior golf and how they can aspire to be great.
Awesome. Hey, Dr. Bob, I've got a question here for you. It comes up quite often as Ryan and I travel around the country talking to parents and players. And one of the things that we hear quite often is about how important the mental game is for junior golfers. And as you probably know, you work with all kinds of players and all kinds of sports and other walks of life. But is there a difference between working with a junior and an adult from your perspective? How do you do that?
Well, it's really not any different. I don't dumb it down for my juniors. I talk about the same things that we're working even with my, you know, number one player in the world, if I'm working with him at the time. The point of it is that, you know, junior golfers, and they're coming up in a whole world of information, and they're pretty savvy and they're pretty smart. And they understand when someone talks to them, you know, and they understand, they know what they're talking about. So when I talk with a junior golfer, we keep things very simple, very specific, you know, and so many times junior golfers, the first thing they want to do is set huge goals, high expectations, and they start comparing themselves to all the other people around them. And one of the first things I try to help, you know, my junior golfer and parents understand is that, you know, we're not running a sprint race here. You know, we're running sort of a marathon, and each person is running their own race. So instead of comparing yourself to other people, compare yourself to your own standards for optimum performance. Because for me, that's really what golf, it's an acronym for gravitating to an optimum level of performance. And that's really what it is. It's gravitating to that optimum level of functioning and performing. And when a player does that and they play their game, because you hear the top players in the world, men and women, PGA and LPGA tours, they say the same things. I play my game. I beat the course and I played one shot at a time. And those, are the key aspects that I work, with junior golfers all over the world on.
Great answer, Dr. Bob. I want to pivot, if you will, to the pressure that is on our junior players. Parents, what I get the most often is, my son or daughter is so good in the practice round. They are so good in practice. And then they get in a tournament and it's like a completely different player out there. The anxiety is just too much for them to overcome. Played the practice round on Friday, shot five under, played the first round of the tournament and shot 10 over, 15 shot swing, all because of this anxiety and pressure. What can I do?
Well, self-imposed pressure, the pressure that an athlete puts on themselves, that's one type of pressure. We have external factor pressure put on by coaches, by other people, peer groups, mom and dad, well-wishers. And what happens is that the expectations that these young players place on themselves, they actually, become overwhelmed. And what are these negative expectations? It's the expectations of, I have to shoot a good score. I have to have a great result for college coaches to see me. I have to, to actually beat the people that I'm playing with. And I have to, play perfect golf. These expectations really sabotage a young player's talent. And the only expectation that really works for me when I'm working with my junior athletes, and even every player I work with, is that the only thing you should expect is that you should expect to play your game, to beat the course, to play one shot at a time, but expect to be committed into your process. And when we do that, it is something that we can control. It's what we talk about, controlling the controllables, because so many young players get overwhelmed. They've been playing really well, as you say, in the practice rounds, the rehearsal rounds, and then they get into a tournament and they feel like they have to do something different, that they've really got to perform now, that they have to bring it to another level. That is totally bogus. The thing they should be doing is to be practicing like they play and to play like they practice. So if you can make your practice much more similar to a real life situation, you can transfer, that same emotional feeling. And that's really where the pressure comes from. And let me just talk about pressure. Pressure is a factor, or any combination of factors, that increase, the importance of one wanting to perform well. So anytime we say, wow, this is a big tournament, I'm going to play in this HJGT or AJGA, and ooh, it's a big tournament, a lot of great players. Just by you saying that and really, pounding on that, you have actually set the bar. You put this tournament on a pedestal, and now they feel like, oh, I have to do something different. And the one thing I'm always helping players do is, hey, you have a great game. You've developed it. You've honed it. Go out there and play the way that you can play. And I always tell them this: go out and create your day, know what you know, and enjoy the heck out of it.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and it's easier said than done, as you would say, right? I mean, that is something that these kids, unprecedented, all the pressure and kind of the anxiety, as Ryan was saying, is on them about getting recruited and being recognized. Which leads me to maybe another question, which is confidence, right? So we talk about that and I kind of, what I'm hearing from you is like, you've done all of this work to build up your confidence, if you will, to play at a competent level, right? So how do you define that, and what would you say to the audience as what is confidence, and how do you improve it or build on?
Well, since I'm known internationally as the confidence doctor, you've come to the right place.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. So confidence is this multi-dimensional construct, and it's an amalgamation of successful experiences, coupled with the belief that one can and will do something to produce a positive result. It's highly linked with faith and belief in one's developed and innate, capacities and capabilities. But confidence is also the ability to resist the negative forces of doubt and worry, but also to come through it and to say, I can do this. So confidence is a belief system. It's something that you create. It's something you nurture. It's something that you train. But the reason why people love the feeling, Ryan and Roger, of confidence is that it's not just the belief in the competence, I can do something, or I believe I can do something. There's a second, power pack punch to confidence, and it's this fearlessness. I don't fear screwing up. I don't feel like I'm going to fail. And that's why people love the feeling of confidence, because it gives them this freedom to just go ahead and play the way they want to play. And that's what confidence is. And confidence, as Jack Nicklaus said, it is the single most important ingredient to a player's, repertoire. And the only way you can actually earn it is through hard work, dedication, and practice. And that's really what we call sweat equity confidence. In order to be confident, you just can't say, I'm going to be confident today. You have to earn the right to feel that you're ready to play, that you're prepared, that you put in all the work. And then, having said all that, you've got to give yourself this emotional permission to go out and just play the way that you can play. And as we always say, a lot easier to talk about than it is to do. But that's really what my job is as a sports psychologist, is to help, young players and all players understand that golf is a tough, frustrating sport. And you have to have the mental discipline to be smarter than your doubt and better than your fear. And that's really what confidence and preparing to be confident and preparing to go out and play great is all about. You give yourself that permission to say, I know how to do this. Let's go and let's have a blast finding out how good I can be today.
Dr. Bob, I want to go back because it's wonderful advice, but I do want to touch on the pressure thing. Like, the reality is this: our audience are parents of 8 to 18-year-olds. I understand you can say to your blue in your face to your child, oh, this is just any other tournament. Just go play like it's the practice round. Don't put any extra pressure on yourself. But these kids aren't stupid. They understand that it is a big tournament. They understand that there is a lot on the line. They understand that there are coaches walking the golf course looking to see what kind of player that she or he is. So I understand you could try to trick yourself to believe, well, this is just any other day. But the reality is, none of us believe that. We all know that it is a bigger tournament. We all know that there is a coach that for a school that I hope that he looks at me and watches me play, is watching and is there. So is there a way to understand, okay, this is not going to feel like a practice round. Your knee is going to be shaking on the first tee, but use that to your advantage as opposed to making it play worse.
Yeah,
Dr.
absolutely.
B, before you jump into that, Dr. B, I just got to say, I think that was Ryan's, own fear coming through of like talking about his knee shaking on the first tee. I think
Exactly right.
Absolutely, Roger. And believe me, I understand exactly what you're saying. I mean, having been a former player who has played at every level, has coached in college and played, just at every different level through the years, you can, again, talk yourself blue in the face and say, hey, it's just another day. But it really isn't. And it's almost like when you're little kids, when you get picked first to be on a team, you intrinsically and intuitively know, hey, I might be one of the very best players here. And if you're one of the last players picked, you're probably, saying to yourself, I'm not that good. So, young kids, junior players, they understand the importance of it. What I'm trying to say is I'm trying to help everyone understand. Everyone feels the nerves. Now you have to, ask yourself, am I using this energy in a negative fashion? Am I worried about failing? Am I worrying about fearing screwing up? Or am I going to use this energy to say, you know what? I'm anticipating this day. This is a great opportunity for me. Let's go out and let's just see how well I can play today. So I think we have to embrace the pressure. And I think we have to let young people know that even the best players in the world, feel pressure. I even quote Tiger Woods. He says, pressure is always a good thing because I knew if I felt pressure that, what I'm playing for is worth something. So everyone has this and everyone, has to deal with it in a very individual manner. But I have to, say one thing. Before we actually have a junior player go out, and as a parent or coach, to your child, you'd say, here's the thing I want you to do. If you can, you have to realize you have control over this one shot at any one moment. All I'm asking you to do today is give me your best energy, your best focus into every shot all day today. If you do that, the score and the results will come to you. And it is just a philosophy that I just drive home with every one of my new players. It is just that whole philosophy is that the golf course doesn't know what tournament it is. The golf ball doesn't know what tournament it is. You as a human being do. And you have to realize we have to actually cut out all of this psychological fat and keep it golf. It's golf. We play it one shot from the tee box into the final, shot into the hole. And we're trying to be as efficient, effective, and economical in our strokes as we possibly can. And once you actually sort of deliver that message to them, I'm looking for you to give me a great effort, the best you can do. And that's all I can ask of you. And if you do that for yourself, at the end of the day, you can look yourself in the mirror and go, you know what? I did a pretty good job today of doing that. And I remember asking, two of the very best players in the world, have you ever given yourself a chance to play each shot as well as you can all day long? And they both looked at each other and go, I don't think I really have. I mean, I've done a pretty good job, but I don't think I've done 100%. So even the best players in the world, don't really give their best on every shot. I'm just talking about the best. They're trying to. So I think that's the whole point. We can humanize the game and say, listen, all you can do is all you can do. But if you do exactly what you can do, then that should be more than enough.
That's a really good answer. Dr. Bob is also kind of tying that into, we talk to the players a lot about development, and it's now this buzzword out there, player development. And you ask the player, they're working on their golf skills, they're working on their bunker game, their putting, and then you talk about mental game. And obviously you as a mental coach and performance coach, how often and what skills are you looking to develop with, junior players or any player for that matter? Because when you ask the player, well, how much do you work on your mental skills? You get that blank stare like, what do you mean?
Well, I think that's,
what do you do?
Yeah. Well, that's the first thing. Even when I sit down with a player, I don't care who it is, I ask him that first question. I say, in relation to your golfing talent, are you good? And I'm looking for a knee-jerk response, because when I have a player that goes, sometimes I think I'm good and sometimes I'm not. But if I hear a player say, yes, I'm very good, and I go, well, how do you know that? And that's really, where we kind of start from. And the point being is that what are we supposed to be training here in the mental game? And someone asked me, he goes, what part of the mental game is golf? Is it 50%, 80%? And I sort of didn't know that Ben Hogan quoted this in one of my earlier books. I talked about that golf is 100% physical, it's 100% mental, it's 100% emotional, and it's 100% compartmental. And people go, wow, that's a lot of 100%. The point of it is, it's all integrated. Where does one begin and where does one end? So the mental game, as I'm always helping my athletes, wherever you go, whatever you're doing, it's all about developing your mental game. Where can you not learn how to be a little bit more patient? You're in line at a grocery store. You're sitting there waiting. You're upset. People are waiting for you in the car, and there's like 2 or 3 people in front of you. Here is a perfect place for you to learn patience, because patience for young, students, young athletes is huge, because everyone is so impatient and they want things right now, because in the world that we live in with instant gratification, people become very impatient. And for me, patience is a virtue, because it is confidence waiting to happen. And so when we start talking about, developing patience, developing confidence, developing focus, we do that 100%, all day long. So I'm saying, listen, everything you're doing in your everyday life can be transferred, not from a life skill, but to a golf skill on the golf course. Making clear decisions, being patient, being in the moment. If you find yourself drifting in the classroom, snap yourself out of it. It's sort of like playing in a fog when you're on the golf course. So everything that I'm trying to do is to sort of facilitate these mental focus skills, so that when a player goes out to the golf course, they're making critical decisions, good decisions, with clarity and with this purposeful intention. That's really what, we're talking about. That's how we actually develop, this performance, skill index. Is that we look not only at, the psychological, we look at the emotional, we look at the physical, we even look at the spiritual, how spiritual. Do they really love the sport? Are they happy, being out there? Do they love competition? So there's a lot of areas we can get to, Roger and Ryan, with all of these different questions you're asking.
Take us out on the golf course, Bob, as before we let you go here with some, one of the biggest things I see in junior golf that you start to see less of at the professional game is a couple of different things. One, a junior golfer expects to hit every fairway and every green. And when they don't hit every fairway or every green, there is disappointment, and there is obviously momentum heading in a different direction. All you have to look at is proximity on the PGA Tour, the best players in the world, and how close they hit it to the pin. The very best players in the world, you can compare yourself to them from 100 yards, 125 yards, 150. I promise you, it's far less than even the expectation a junior golfer gives for themselves. So give us some advice, Dr. Bob, about when the negative does happen, because in the game of golf, it will happen. As good a round as you're going to have, there's going to be a missed putt. There's going to be a missed fairway. There's going to be a missed iron. It's inevitable. It's a very difficult game. So we often see in the junior game scorecard, a bogey leads to bogey leads to a bogey. The kid will play beautiful golf, have 4 bogeys in a row in the middle of the round, and then everything gets back on track. And you say afterwards, what happened there with those? Well, it started at hole 11 because I missed the. What do you tell the kids about dealing with, it's not always going to be perfect out there?
Well, that's exactly right, because that's one of the biggest expectations that junior golfers do have. They expect every swing to be perfect, they expect every shot to be perfect, and they become very frustrated, very angry when their results don't equal or match, those expectations. So one of the things that we have to agree on here is that every player steps into a shot. They're planning on hitting the fairway. They're planning on hitting the ball into the hole. They're planning on making that putt. Now, when, that plan doesn't work out as it planned, they have to do one thing. And this is part of having a great routine. The final act, the final step in any great pre-shot routine or one-shot mindset is accepting the result and releasing the emotional frustration or the emotional outburst and parking it and putting it behind you. And one of the things we talk about is acceptance. Now, acceptance isn't acquiescence and saying, oh, okay, I hit it out of bounds. I was okay with that. Acceptance is, what I call the neutral objective term to say, it is what it is. Now, I have to deal with it. I may not like it, but I do have, to deal with it. Now, if I can park it and put it behind me, that is great. One of the things I'm giving my students is that if you don't hit a really good shot, instead of actually putting a club and slamming the club in the bag, we do what we call a 2 swing away. We swing away this, emotional disgust, this frustration, and then we make a really good swing. Because from having this really good swing, we're making a good primer rehearsal. So we're putting the club back into the bag. So the next time we have to pull that club out, we're not pulling a mistake. And then as we pick up our bag, I always like to talk about the 8-step walk away. You take 8 steps from the spot where you hit that last shot. And as you move into your 8th, the 9th, the 10th step, you are now looking ahead. What has just happened is history. It's Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson. It's a done deal. You put it behind you. That's what parking it's all about. So accepting, the shot, releasing, the frustration, and then parking that frustration. Because what happens is that players go from golfers to garbage collectors. They take their garbage from one missed shot, one bad hole, and they take 2 or 3 holes. And by the time they've actually, resolved and composed themselves, they've actually, sort of damaged their round. And that's where they go, gosh, I gave away 3 or 4 shots. Why? Because they did, something I call chucking. Chucking is not like choking, but it's because you have this emotional outburst and you have this sort of what I call defamation of character. You tell yourself how bad you are, that's ridiculous, and you start making excuses and you go into this negative anxiety spiral. And, we have, to teach our student athletes, our young athletes, hey, you need to do a much better job of accepting it, releasing that anger, and parking all of those results and moving into the next shot with renewed vigor and enthusiasm. That right there is a mental skill that takes you from junior golf to college golf to developmental tour to the professional tours. And that's really, what I've done for the last 40 years. Is helping a young player do that. Just learn how to do that, and then the rest takes care of itself.
Yeah, that's really good advice for a lot of the young players out there. But I want to kind of go back into that a little bit because I think, as you say, parking it, right? I think it's very hard for these junior players to park it because they get reminded they have to put it in reverse every time they finish their round, and their parents standing there waiting for them, with their arms crossed and scowled, going, how could you choke like that? How can you make that mistake? How could you make bogeys after playing so well in the front 9? So they relive that. So what would be a message that you would have to parents, if you will, because I think that is a big part of the junior golfers, developing the skills of learning through mistakes, learning through experiences. But parents don't understand that as much, I don't think, as we would like for them to. And that outbreak or the kids having this emotional outburst out there, I think it's more about them having to deal with their parents later after the round than it is, that they don't believe in their skills or the confidence. What would be a good message for parents out there?
Well, you're absolutely right. And what I'm always trying to coach, my junior athletes, and as well as coaching the parents and coaching them up as to sort of what is a winning philosophy for your son or daughter, is that they're not playing for you. They're not playing to meet your expectations. They're doing the very best they can. And on that team, if I have Susan on Susan's team, it's Team Susan. It's not mom, dad, coach. It's me, myself, and I. Susan is making the decisions for herself. She's playing her game the way she sees it. Now, when Susan comes in off the golf course, what mom and dad, I would instruct them to do is give her a little decompression time, about 30 minutes before you actually say, what happened on number 12? What was going on there? Because I had, one time many years ago, I asked, this one player, a junior player, 16-year-old girl, what's the toughest 18 holes you've ever had to play? And she looked at me with tears in her eyes, and her father was with her. And he said, well, tell Dr. Winters, Princess, tell him. And she just couldn't. So he went to the bathroom, came back. And during that time, she said, the toughest 18 holes I have to play are the 18 holes I have to relive in the car, explaining every shot, why I did it, and why it was so bad, according to his view or whatever. So I would tell parents, listen to your children. Don't, be so quick to give them, great advice that you think, you want to provide for them. And one of the things I always tell parents, we want to critique the performance versus criticizing the performer. That's a really big thing right there. Because if you give them a little time to decompress, they will come to you and say, Mom, Dad, what'd you see out there on number 12? So now they haven't put up their defense shield. They're now asking you for your input. And now this can be very productive as a learning feedback experience. So that's the first thing I would tell parents. And I have said this before, is that many times parents who really don't even know that much about playing the game, and God bless all of them. The biggest thing I love parents to do is to be there for your child, because, that says and suggests that you care. But one of the things, if they become too hovering or too overwhelming, is that I always try to do a sports parentectomy, meaning that we have to remove the parent from the young golfer. And what that means is you just need to take a break and just sort of chill out and enjoy the talent, because Tiger and Katita Woods did something with a young Tiger Woods years ago that I thought was great. And when asked about Tiger's success, they said, we gave him room to succeed. We also gave him the freedom to fail. And when he did fail, it wasn't like he was failing. He wanted to realize, why did he not do so well? We would actually discuss it. We would give him feedback, and he would learn from that failing opportunity. So there is really no losing. You either win or you learn. And I think parents, they can take that perspective, is that give them a little bit of breathing time, a little bit of downtime before you come in and start critiquing the performance. But you never want to criticize the performer at all. I mean, that is a definite no-no.
That certainly is wonderful advice. A couple little quick things before we get out there would just be, are there any tricks that you use about eating or sleeping or hydrating, things that will actually help the mind get through a tournament golf?
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think these are tricks. These are scientific evidence based on all the sports science I've been in for these many decades, is that, you really don't want to load them up with a great big meal before they go out and play, but you definitely do want to make sure they have a lot of energy drinks, they have a lot of energy bars. And one of my great suggestions that I have learned from many unbelievable college nutritionists and teams is that we're going to eat something every third hole, even if they don't really want to. Say, I'll grab something at the turn. You need to be eating maybe bananas, a little apples, a little bit of granola mix, or whatever it is, every third hole. We want to keep the blood sugars, you want to keep those levels very constant. We don't want to have, them going, bonking out, going too low if the blood sugars are going too high. But, just having water isn't enough, having, some type of energy drink. But I've always said, that bananas are great because bananas have a lot of potassium. They have a lot of fiber. They also have tryptophan in there. If in case you have a young player who's a little bit nervous on the first tee, eating a banana before you go to the first tee tends to, have a calming effect. So those are the things. And that's why on the PGA and LPGA tour, almost on every hole, you see where they have water, energy drinks, they have fruit, they have, snacks, so that, the athletes can continually be, ingesting something. Because it isn't just about hydration. It's about, replacing those burnt calories. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of mental and physical energy to play a 4.5, 5 hour round, especially if you're pushing your clubs, carrying your clubs, and in hot weather as well. So those are, some of the things I would say, but those are things that the best players in the world do. And if you really want to, be the best, then you emulate the best, what they're doing.
Good advice. A lot of good advice there, Ryan.
Yeah, no doubt, Dr. Bob, we for all the junior golf families that would like to get in touch with you on a more personal level, is there a best way for them to reach out and connect with you?
Absolutely. They can go right to my website. There's a big information box. They can contact me directly. It's called theconfidencedoctor.com. confidencedoctor.com. And they can also reach me at davidledbetter.com. I've been with David Ledbetter and his World Teaching Academy for the last 25 years. They can reach me there as well. But the confidencedoctor.com, they want to get a hold of me. And I'm always open and very motivated to work, with these young, junior athletes, and very excited to carry on the tradition of having these junior golfers go out and, seek greatness, and then you never know who's going to be out on the PGA or LPGA tour. It's amazing how many young players I've had that have actually gone from junior golf and they've made it all the way, and now they're playing on the big tours. Yeah. So it's a wonderful process, a wonderful game.
Yeah, no doubt. It is an incredible journey. Dr. Bob Winters, thanks so much. And I'm sure you'll be hearing from several of our listeners and viewers. So thanks for the time today on the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks,
Bob.
Roger. You guys have a great day.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.
Ryan, some good advice there, man.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both agree that it's probably the most untapped part of a junior golfer, just because of their age and how little experience the parent might have in that world. We see it. Every junior golfer has a golf coach. Mm-hmm. But how many of them ultimately are training the brain to handle the pitfalls that are coming? I know that certainly the Performance Center deals with that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your experiences on how you guys have personally helped and changed someone that maybe was really struggling with tournament golf, and what was something that kind of brought them to the other side?
Yeah, I mean, internally for us, I mean, our Dr. Brandt, who's been amazing also for us, much like Dr. Winters there, talking about the confidence, doctor. But Dr. Brandt, and one of the things that we've learned through the years of dealing with so many junior athletes is there are developmental skills in the mental game, right? I mean, I think, again, we assume that, to your point of these kids have golf coaches, they go out and they seek physical coaches and different things, but they never really understand the mental side of coaching, what it really means to actually have a mental coach and what it means to develop the mental skills. And, Dr. Winters mentioned, briefly there about cognitive skills and developmental skills and making decisions. And, those are all skills that these kids need to learn on a daily basis, how to make a right decision and accept, and how to make a wrong decision and accept, and how to learn from those mistakes and accept. And I think that's a skill that I think a lot of parents assume is innate, right? I mean, as an athlete, I think, and it's not, and it's something that takes a lot of time to develop. I mean, we have we have a curriculum that Dr. Brand has devised through learning, our skills inventory, if you will, to be able to identify the most important things to the individual of where those weaknesses and strengths are, and then kind of work on specific exercises to develop that. And I think now, having been successful doing this for a long time, we see parents starting to embrace the fact that this is a learning process and not just a result-based process, right? So I think that's been really important for us to see that happening, the parents see it happening, seeing the kids growing and developing into really good young men and women that learn how to deal with adversities that maybe they've never had to deal with before.
And how about, we hate to come on here and say it's always the parents' fault, right? But
yeah.
Have you seen an example of a young player? And Dr. Winters told the story of the worst 18 holes, or in the car reliving the 18 holes that they just played. Have you seen instances where that damage was never able to be repaired, had the talent, but maybe the mental side, they were so beat up that they never could recover?
Unfortunately, I've had that experience a few times over the years, 20 plus years doing this. Unfortunately, you're going to run into a couple of those situations. But yeah, I mean, I had actually both female and a male young athlete, very talented, can go out and play with the best of them out there, where, at one point, if you look at the rankings of these junior golfers on the U.S. kids in different levels, I mean, they were in the top 10. And but the expectations, the pressure, the never-ending beatdowns of, you have to do this or else, the kids just couldn't handle it. I mean, it was not pretty. It was a very poor and discouraging sight for me and us as a team at GPC to see. And these young people basically walked away from the game. Very talented young people. And the parents blamed everyone else, but looking in the mirror and saying, hey, you know what, maybe I just didn't understand. And we get it. We understand that, we're both of us are parents, right? So we know that how we can be at times, but the reality is, we've accepted that and probably we do something about it. And some parents just don't. And again, I don't want to blame the parents always, but
Right.
we have a significant input, right? I mean, we are who's creating the safe environment for our kids, or trying to create a safe environment, trying to help them by giving them advice. And sometimes that advice just isn't advice. And I think Dr. Winter said it great, is give them time to decompress. They'll come to you, just hug them and say you love them and be supportive. And I think it works out so much better. But unfortunately, yeah, Ryan, I've seen it go the other way a couple times.
Is burnout, Roger, because we hear that's like the number one reason that kids stop playing golf is I can't do it anymore. I'm burned out. I've just practiced. I don't want to play golf anymore. I quit. Is burnout mental or physical?
Well, there's 100% mental and 100% physical.
Yeah, right.
It's all there. I mean, I think most of it's mental. I would say it's very hard to burn out physically. I mean, it takes enormous amounts of loads and enormous amounts of stress for you to physically burn out. And it usually is led from the mental side of it, saying my body can't do this anymore. But it's really your brain saying, I don't want to do it anymore. Right. And I think for kids, it's the burnout is I don't want to do this anymore because I'm not doing it for me. And again, I've seen a few of those cases where the conversation with the junior player is, I just want to, I love doing this. I love playing. I love golf. But man, every time I go and spend any time with my parents, it's all about golf and it's all about this. So, and if I don't do this, then I'm going to not, be successful. And I think that's just too much mentally. It's not physical. It's mental, just where they just can't handle that pressure, which creates anxiety, which creates this enormous kind of wall for them to get over.
Right. Great answer. Certainly. We know that the juniorgolfhub.com is a great resource for junior golfers for everything, starting with, of course, scheduling, finding out about, building your profile, getting your name out there, learning about events and whatnot. What about if you're just kind of starting into this and you're not really sure? Do you just go to the local psychologist and say, lay down on the table with my 12-year-old, he needs a psychologist? I mean, is there a tool that we have that can help identify some areas of the mental game?
Absolutely. You go on the juniorgolfhub.com. You can go through the player development assessment portal. You'll see a mental skills inventory. You'll see a grit test. You'll see things that will help identify some of these areas that you're talking about to give you some insights. So maybe what I should be doing or maybe stop doing. So it's all there in the player development assessment. We do a mental game assessment, right? So skills inventory will certainly help identify some of those strengths and weaknesses, right?
That's awesome. Certainly thanks to Dr. Bob Winters for his perspective. As he said, he has a stable of players that made it from junior golf to college golf all the way to the professional level. Some great insight. And certainly we implore you to go to the juniorgolfhub.com, start with your player development index and find out really in a kind of what I liked about it too, Roger, is we talk so much about stress and so much about pressure going to the big event. PDI, it is fun and it's really stress-free. It is not about you're going to have to put, your score down par birdie. You're going to take a test and find out where you stand and where you can improve. So I know for me personally and the players that we talk to about PDI at the college level that have been fortunate enough to go through it, it is really a way to kind of step away from the anxiety of day-to-day golf, but also really find out where you can improve without it kind of punching you in the face that you made triple.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, listen, as Dr. Winters just talked about, the confidence doctor. I mean, you want to be confident, know where you are. And I think that's the fun thing about doing the PDI assessment and getting your index. It's fun. Our kids have a great time going through it. They want to learn. They want to see their improvement. They want to know where their weaknesses are. And they challenge each other to do that. So I do think it is one of those things that you can do every day. You can do it on your own. You can do it as a test and get your index score, which I think, again, as we've talked about, I think it's going to be a standard at some point in time where people go, oh my, I want to know where I'm at. Right. Yep. I mean, Sam Choi just said this to me a couple of weeks ago. I think I mentioned that to you, who just is number one in Canada right now, is going to play in the Fortinet this week, I believe. So, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's extremely cool. And the reality is this: you can trust us and do it now, or you're going to be like, it's going to hit everybody in the face, because it's so good. It is inevitably going to be part of junior golf and part of something that everyone will need to go through. So, jump on the juniorhub.com now and certainly start your association and your understanding of PDI. Once again, a special thanks to Dr. Bob Winters for his time today. Roger, as always, thank you for your time. To our producer and director, Michael Knick, we thank him as well. Episode 22. The next episode, Roger, will be the month of September. So here it comes.
Here it comes. It's amazing. Summer's over.
Yeah, summer's over. We started the show with high school golf. I will add that once again, if you can play high school golf and you're on the fence because the level isn't up to where your son or daughter is, let them at least try it. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of time going out for pizza after and just letting the kid be a kid. And as we know, if you're certainly trending towards the top of junior golf, they've given up a lot as kids to get to where they are. So my 2 cents, if you have the opportunity and it's not too obtrusive to their daily routine, go for it. I think they'll all come back and say that was the most fun I've had in a long time. So that's how we started the show. That's how we'll end it. Episode 22. This has been the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast.